Welcome back to Face the State. I'm Ariana Bennett. Thank you for keeping it here. It seems like the thing to do in Northern Nevada these days is to start a new business. But before you do, you want to make sure that all the legal legwork is done right, so your new business doesn't fail before it can even really get going. So Abby Stephenson with Blanchard, Krasner French is here to talk about that. Abby, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Yeah, good to have you back. All right, so are you seeing a lot of clients coming to you wanting to start new businesses?
Yes, I mean, that's one of my target audiences. So I like to think that when they're starting a new business, they think of us, they come to us. But yeah, there's a lot going on here in Nevada, especially Northern Nevada right now.
Now, I don't know a whole lot about starting a new business, but I imagine when you come up with a concept for your business, maybe you apply for a business loan, get your business license, are you necessarily always thinking about the legal aspect of it and getting real legal advice?
Oftentimes, no. If you can get connected with some good advisors at the beginning, some good mentors, people to kind of help you get steered in the right direction, then you're going to probably end up speaking with an attorney at some point. Some of the things that you think about when you're starting a business is what type of business entity should I have? Should I be a sole proprietorship? Am I working with somebody else? Maybe I could be a partnership. What about an LLC, a limited liability company? What is that? What about a corporation? And then there's different kinds of corporations. So there's a lot of things to think about just in terms of your entity structure. And a mentor can help just steer you to the right people to advise you on that. Also, thinking about getting a good accountant is very useful at the beginning of starting a business. And then there's local nonprofits and organizations that can help you with things like your business plan and maybe hiring your first employee. Intellectual property issues. There's so many things to think about.
I know, totally overwhelming for sure. So legally speaking, if someone's looking at starting a new business, what's the first thing they should do?
When they're thinking about starting a new business, sitting down and doing a business plan is a great place to start because that makes you articulate in a very concrete way what is the purpose of this business? Who's going to be involved in my business? What's my growth trajectory? What's my exit plan? You know, really from day one when you start your business, you kind of want to think about when you're ending your business or exiting your business. Maybe you want to sell it off. And how you form your business, what type of entity you choose to be in, and how you internally structure yourself. You want to take those things into consideration.
So from there, and say a client comes to you and they've kind of got this figured out, do you like write out bylaws or a plan, or like what do you do?
Right. So the first thing I generally do is talk to them about entity type. You know, going through that list again, sole proprietor. Are you operating just you? Is this a relatively small endeavor? Is this a low liability risk company? Maybe all you really need is your business license and you can go on your merry way and operate your business. If you're working with other people, doing something like a partnership is a good idea, or an LLC or an S Corp or a C Corp, because it gives you structure to your relationship. When you're working with other people and you own businesses together, how do you deal with conflict? What happens when you don't agree on something? When you have one of those entity structures, what you typically also have are legal documents in place to help you navigate disagreements and interests. You might have heard like a partnership agreement. That's one type of document. An operating agreement, that kind of goes to an LLC. Like you mentioned, bylaws, those go with the corporation. And for corporations, we also usually see a shareholder agreement, which is an agreement less related to how you operate your business and more related to the relationships between the shareholders.
So I want to go back to the idea of a partnership. Is this a bad idea, legally speaking, partnerships?
Oh no, partnerships can be great. It just depends on what type of business it is and whether you want liability protection.
Okay.
A lot of people tend to like and be more comfortable with like a limited liability company. But there are fees associated with being a limited liability company in any state. And you know, in Nevada, you have to file your articles of organization to be an LLC. Some of those things, depending on the type of partnership, you might not have to do a filing.
All right, so say someone comes to you with a partner, and I imagine this probably happens a lot, and it's their best friend or a family member,
right.
And they think, we get along great, this is just not gonna be an issue. Is that just famous last words?
Yeah. I mean, I try to, you know, be as optimistic and idealistic about their business as they are, but it's also my job to help them plan for what comes up down the line. And sometimes it's not just disagreement. You know, I say there's like 5 Ds. There is death, disability, divorce, disagreement, and I'm forgetting the 5th one. But you know, those are all things that can happen over the course of a business to different owners. What happens if somebody, disabled? Oh no, I already covered that.
So it's going to come to you at 3 in the
Right.
morning. That's good, that's what will happen.
But you can have all of those things be triggering events in your operating agreement that cause something to happen. So if somebody is terminated from their employment, maybe they're an employee and they own a business, if they are no longer an employee, do they still get to own their business interest? Or does it make sense for them to kind of move on their way and for their business interest to be purchased by the other business partners? If that happens, how do you determine what the purchase price is? And so we put provisions that address all of those things in these agreements. They're really just contracts that help people navigate the tough stuff that comes up when you're operating.
What would you say is the #1 mistake that new businesses make, legally speaking?
Trying to cut corners. You know, it's an investment to hire an attorney. It's an investment to hire a CPA. It's an investment to form an entity to pay for those things. But if you spend a little bit more on the front end, you've got this really great foundation. And you have a team of advisors and people that you can go to when something crazy comes up. I have a client that emailed me today about her company's identity being stolen and somebody opening up a merchant account in their name. And she was like, can I send a demand letter to make these collection people stop bothering me? It was like, okay, here's a random question that you never anticipated coming up, and you knew who to call.
Right. So kind of like having those relationships established already. So then when businesses are starting, obviously they're on a budget and maybe they've got loans they're dealing with. How much do you think they should be budgeting for legal fees on the outset?
It really depends on the size of their business and their business trajectory. I mean, you can form an LLC on LegalZoom for probably $500. I don't recommend that people do that because those are one-size-fits-all documents, and people don't necessarily know if their size is the one size, and a lawyer can help you figure out if that's right. But you can also probably spend $5,000, $10,000 or more on an entity formation if you have multiple kinds of stock. You know, do you have Class A, Class B, do you have preferred? And you have to be really thoughtful about how you craft the documents to show the preferences and deal with all of the different behind-the-scenes documents when it comes to securities regulation that you deal with when you have lots of people investing in your businesses.
Okay, so we've established that you probably need a lawyer. How would you find a good one? What's your advice? There's a lot to pick from.
There are. Look for somebody who does a lot of business law. They've seen what small businesses and startups kind of go through, so they can probably give you a little bit more practical tips than somebody who does it just here or there or sometimes. Personality fit is super important with a business lawyer. This is somebody that you want to be able to dialogue with, feel really comfortable with, enjoy your relationship. Ideally, your lawyer is with you for like the entire trajectory of your business from start to finish, cradle to grave, as my partner Mark likes to say.
Are you allowed to have interview a lawyer and to see if it's a fit and not have to pay $500 an hour?
Well, you should ask them before you sit down with them if there's a charge for an initial consultation. I'm always happy to sit down with people and talk to them about their business. If they're, kind of a prospective client or just thinking about getting together, we do lunch. I'm not going to be able to give somebody legal advice that hasn't engaged our law firm, but I can share legal information. And if it feels like a good fit, then we go from there. And I think that people should try to take the time to find somebody who's a good personality fit. And of course, recommendations, referrals, other friends and business contacts who have worked with those people can help you figure out if they're the right attorney for you.
Okay. What's some other, really good legal advice that we don't have to pay for?
Legal information. Legal information.
Right.
So some of the other things that people run into kind of early on in their business is when they want to get help. They're like, okay, I'm doing great. I can't do this all by myself anymore. I'm working 7 days a week. I'm exhausted. I want help. And they're like, I'll just hire an independent contractor. This is a big pitfall. It's probably an employee that you're actually hiring. And when you hire an employee, you have to follow rules. You have to follow the wage and hour laws. You have to determine if they're exempt and non-exempt. You have to do withholdings from their wages for certain taxes. You have to get different types of insurance, like workers' comp. So when you're thinking about hiring an employee, that's another good point in time to think about consulting an attorney so that they can help you to navigate that transition, which is kind of a big transition for people.
Yeah, that's really good to know. All right, we have just a minute left, but really quickly, does Nevada have any really weird laws people should be aware of? Are we pretty standard compared to other states?
I would say we're actually pretty standard. When you're an employee here, you're an at-will employee. There are some nice presumptions that are favorable to employers when it comes to intellectual property ownership. Non-competition agreements are allowed here, but they're somewhat more restricted than they used to be.
Okay, well that's good. I mean, Nevada's kind of odd in a lot of ways, so it's good to know that we're not legally odd.
No, this is a great state to form a business in. There are actually very favorable business laws here.
All right, so just final thoughts. We have the last few more seconds.
Get your trademark.
Get your trademark.
Protect your trade name, protect your business name. When you're starting a business, make sure that nobody else is using your name.
And get a good lawyer.
Yeah.
All right, Abby, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Now that is it for this episode of Face the State. But for more information on all this or to see past episodes, you can just head to our website. That's ktvn.com. Thank you so much for being with us. We'll see you next week.